Hello everybody, this is Graeme, and today we're looking at 3 different kind of puzzle or mystery games. Now all 3 of them do have a mystery or puzzle to solve, but each one of them kind of approaches it in a different manner. Now I tend to really enjoy these type of games. You know, the puzzles in a box, the mysteries in a box, from, you know, the escape rooms to the murder mystery kind of packages you get where there's just a bunch of evidence you have to filter through to figure out who did the crime. So these games do approach it in a different manner. 2 of them are kind of like traditional mysteries. You're trying to solve, you know, who did the murder, who stole what. And the third is more of a series of puzzles that kind of tell an overarching story. Now the overview in this is going to be very short to try not to spoil anything about the cases, but there will be some components shown kind of related to the intros of some of the cases, which I don't believe are spoilers, but if you don't want to know anything about any of these mysteries, this is just a kind of fair warning. So the first one I'm going to be talking about is Suspects. So in this one you play the role of Adele and Neville, the 2 people on the front here, who are investigative reporters. Now there are 3 cases in this box, all of them set in the 1960s. So let's get it to the table to see how this one's played. Here's Suspects set up. Since this is a puzzle game, I'm not going to be going through too many cards as to not spoil anything. Take the components for the selected case. Each case will start with a stack of cards and 1 or more background and documents. Now the main document will give you the intro to the case, tell you what cards or other components to start with. In this case, we can look at the other 2 documents and card 1 of the deck. There's also a chart on the introduction. As you go through the case, you have to answer the questions listed. When you think you've answered it, write it down and mark off how many cards it took you to answer it in the appropriate spot. If you change your mind later, that's fine. Just put a check mark in the new proper space in this chart. At the end of the game, you are going to score yourself. If you got the question right, score the number of points as the last X you have against that question. Add up your score and the solution document will tell you the final outcome based on your score. Now during the game you're going to be pulling cards out of the deck. For example, in the initial case, you receive a floor plan. If you want to visit one of these rooms, you pull the appropriate card from the deck and read it. There are various color-coded cards for the type of interactions you have with them, like interviewing people, looking at clues, or going to a new location. There are some special cards that might have maybe half a number on them, or maybe part of a line. If you find the other half, you can pull the resulting card, or it might give you further details. Once you've completed the case, you open the solution envelope to see what really happened, and based on your score, what the final outcome was to the people. Now first off, I really like the look of this one. The art is really well done and very evocative of the time. At least of, you know, how that time is portrayed in like movies and TV shows. Everything kind of has a shiny gloss to it, which just kind of enhances the feel of maybe watching a detective show on TV. Now the gameplay in this one was my least favorite of the 3. Not to say it was bad, but it almost feels like it should have been like one of those old computer games in general, where you're just kind of presented with several options and you just kind of point and click on what you want to investigate. The mysteries themselves were interesting and I felt fair. You were given usually enough information that you needed to solve the cases with kind of some, you know, levels of reasoning. I did feel that there might have been stretched a little too thin with some of the assumptions, but I still kind of felt fair nonetheless. I get to the end of the case and go, oh, okay, yeah, I can see where you're going for. Now I played this one solo and it worked very well like that, and it can also easily be played with a small group. Out of the 3 of them, this is probably the most approachable one and will be kind of familiar in the gameplay to most people. And if that's what you're looking for, then this one would not be a bad place to start. So I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10 and the Dice Tower seal of approval. I enjoy the mystery, but the mechanisms didn't wow me because we've seen this type of thing before, and you know, where you talk to person X to take card Y, and if you go to location Y, you get card B. Good solid gameplay, but we've kind of seen this thing before. The next one to look at is Perspectives. Now this one does contain 3 cases, each with 4 acts each. Now each case is completely disconnected from the others and range in crimes committed from thefts to an assassination. Now this one's hook is that it should be played by multiple players, as it's a game about communication. As each player is going to get a series of photographs that only they can see, that each show something slightly different. Let's get at the table to see how this one's played. Here's Perspective set up for 3 players. Select the case you want to solve, and each case is comprised of 4 acts. The acts do need to be done in order, but they don't all have to be done in the same session. You read the introduction on the folder, then distribute the cards in order face down equally amongst all the players. So, in this 3-player game, the first player would get 1, 4, 7, and 10 cards. Each player then looks at their cards and freely discusses what they see, but can't show their cards to the other players. As a group, decide on one card to be shown to all players. Again, players are free to discuss their cards and any hypothesis they have. The group can reveal a second card for all to see, but each card beyond the first will cost you a point when you score yourself. Once the group decides that they can answer the question on the front of the card, put all the cards face down, flip the folder over to reveal further questions. When you think you've answered everything, open up the folder to reveal the correct answer. For each correct answer you have, you score yourself a point. You do this for Acts 2 and 3, but for the final 4th act, you take all the cards from all the previous acts and place them all face up in front of all the players to see them. Then, after the discussion, flip the final folder over to answer those questions, then open up to reveal the solution. Once you've completed all 4 acts, count up how many correct answers you've got through all the 4 acts, then score yourself according to this chart. Now this one I felt was kind of the weakest in terms of story. Each case had some background, but since you're just mainly dealing with pictures or photographs of emails, the only backstory you're getting is through the intro and the ending of each mystery. Now there are, again, like I said, some emails and reports that appear on the picture cards, but it really feels like you're examining clues after the fact and not involved with the location. Again, it's not a bad thing, but it does make you feel less connected than that first game. The gameplay in this one I actually found interesting. Handing out those cards so each person gets their own view of what happened or their own perspective, it really forces a communication. And honestly, it does feel a little overly forced. You can just sit there and describe everything in detail on all the cards to all the players, but you just can't show them. The idea that you can show one to all players without the penalty is okay, but I almost wish there was something else that was limiting your communication. I'm thinking if you were like 3 people spread out amongst areas with just walkie-talkies or something. The mysteries I felt were varied in a good amount and had little twists in them as the acts unfolded. They were a little more straightforward and required fewer leaps of logic than the first one, but they all made logical sense in the end. This one definitely benefits from having the same group play through a case, so all 4 acts of one case, as you're often referring back to previous acts, and the 4th act is where you have all the pictures in front of you. It definitely helps if you've been involved with the cases up until that point, so you kind of know what's going on. This one never struck me as a good solo game, as the benefit from the gameplay really comes from that communication of the, oh, you see it from this angle, but this is what I see on my side of the room or, on the computer screen, whatever. If you're looking for a group puzzle game where all players need to interact with each other, this one would be a good one to get. I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10, and again, the Dice Tower seal of approval. I enjoy the mysteries, and I enjoy that each player saw something a little different, and we all had to effectively communicate to solve the mystery. The last one in this batch is one called The Light in the Mist. Now this one is definitely different from the other 2s in terms of how it plays and the story it's telling. This is more of a series of puzzles, and as you solve the puzzle, the story and the backstory kind of unfolds for you. It also has a lot more serious story than the other games, and it only has one story, but it's spread out amongst 22 puzzles. Every time you solve a puzzle, you get a bit of the story. So let's get it to the table to see how this one's played. Here's Light in the Mist set up. Once you've read over the main story, you'll pick up any of the major arcana cards and find all the minor arcana cards needed for that puzzle. There's a handy card reference in the main book that lists all of the minor cards for each major arcana card. Next, for the chosen major arcana card, read the corresponding entry in the wisdom section of the main book. Then it's up to you to solve the puzzle using the minor cards for the chosen major one. The solution to the puzzle will always be an English word, which you'll look up in the solution section of the book, then read that section in the vision section of the main book. Anytime you're told to put something in your backpack, you record it on your backpack card. You will need to go through all the major arcana cards. You can do them in any order except the first and last. Once you've completed all the cards, you'll have the complete story of what happened. Now the story in this one is by far the best of the bunch. It is a bit on the serious side, but I did enjoy the way it was told. You get kind of bits and pieces in the random order depending on the order that you solve the puzzles. The story's not complicated, so you don't need to be taking notes of what happened when, but once all the puzzles are solved, there is a closure to the story which I appreciated. Now this one I did play solo, and I do felt it worked very well like that. I would work on a puzzle for a while, and if I was stuck, I'd either, decide to move on to another puzzle, or maybe take a break. And I would often finish off one puzzle and say, that's it for the day, I have to put it away. I start packing it up and then pause and start maybe just one more before I decide to pass it away. Because I enjoy the discovery process in this one. The puzzles also felt very satisfying to solve. except one. There is one I still don't fully understand how the solution is to be derived, even after using the hint system, and that brings up the excellent hint system in here. I like this one. It is a website you go to, but it gave you progressively pointed clues on not only what you were trying to solve, but how you solve it. That's because in this one, it may not be obvious what you're trying to do. Multiple of the minor arcana cards are used in multiple major ones. So just figuring out what the puzzle is you're trying to solve was kind of a small puzzle in itself, and just that combination just seemed very appealing to me. The puzzles themselves were maybe a bit uneven. Some were I found definitely harder than others, but I'm okay with that. Again, you had the opportunity, there's no time limit, you could just kind of work on them as you wished. I do feel that this one's probably best played solo, or maybe a maximum of 2 players. It says in the box it can play up to 4, but I'm not sure about that. When working on a puzzle, you need to have all the cards in front of you, kind of looking for the patterns. And I feel that 4 might be too crowded for all the players to be involved in the puzzle. So I would say solo or maybe 2 players. For me, of this group, this was my favorite. I enjoyed the approach they took of kind of being a non-linear story, and I like that I never knew what sort of puzzle I was going to be looking at to solve. I knew I was going to be looking for a word, but getting to that word was fun and enjoyable for almost all the puzzles. So I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. If you're looking for a good, solid puzzle to play solo, or maybe with 1 or 2 other people, and want a story that is kind of more emotional than your normal puzzle game, this is definitely one you should check out. But that's it for the moment. Until next time, thanks for watching.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.